Hi student, it's Kate here. In this video, I will show you how to calculate the volume variance, price and efficiency variance, and the budget variance. And we will use exercise 8.19 in your textbook to illustrate this. So again, I have opened the Excel file and have inputted all the data given in the question. And you may pause the video here and start opening your Excel, input all the data in, or open the notebook and we can get started. So I have input all the data about the static budget and the actual figures, as well as all the additional information about the selling price per unit and the variable cost per unit for two products, large and small. Okay, now the first thing we have to notice is that in order to prepare the flexible budget, so in the first question asks you to complete this variance analysis table. And you see that in order to calculate the variance, the volume variance, and the efficiency or price variance and the budget variance, we need to know the flexible budget. Indeed, the budget variance is not, you don't need the flexible budget for the budget variance, because that is the difference between the static budget and the actual figure. So in this case, if you want to calculate the budget variance, you just take the actual and you minus the static budget. But if you want to go further, deeper into the details and investigate further, then you have to have the flexible budget. All right, so in order to prepare the flexible budget, you need to know the actual sales. And how do we know the actual sales? If you look at the additional information, the selling price per unit for large is 10,000 and small is 3,000. And you have the actual sales for large and small. So based on that, you can calculate the actual sales. In this case, we can calculate the number of units of large item we have sold by using the sell and divided by the selling price. And we do again for the small item. You take the sales and you divide it by selling price and you got the number of units. Now, in here you can calculate the budgeted sales as well, even though we do not need that for the flexible budget, but I can do that for you now. Look at the static budget and you take the sales for large item and you divide it by the selling price. And you do the same for the small item. You take 1 million and divide it by the selling price. Oh, it's a bit weird because this is like not a round number, but never mind, we don't need that figures. Now we have the actual sales. We can prepare the flexible budget. The flexible budget sales, you know that the flexible budget also use the actual sales, and we also use the selling price. So basically, the sales for the flexible budget is the same as the actual sales. So we just transfer from here, all right, to here, and then you can take the total sales. Again, when it comes to the variable cost, we have the variable cost per unit, and then we have the sales volume. So we can calculate the variable cost for small and large. Now for small, the materials is 700 per unit, and then you times the actual sales of small, which is 490. You do the same thing for labor, 400 times 490. And the variable overhead, 60 times 490. Similarly, we do the same thing for large. We take the materials and we times the sales volume. Be careful not to take the wrong cell, okay? Again, the labor and times and the variable overhead. Now we can sum up to get the total variable cost. And then we can calculate the contribution margin for flexible budget by take the total sales minus the total variable cost. Now if you compare this figure with the figures you got in the solution, in the solution of the textbook, you'll see that it's different, because in the textbook they take this figure as the net, the contribution margin, which is wrong. This figure, the 1,816,400, is actually the total variable cost. Now, flexible budget is only difference from the static budget in any figures that depends on the sales volume. But for the fixed cost, because the fixed cost does not change regardless of how much that you sell. All right, so we just transfer the variable, all the fixed costs from the static budget to the flexible budget. And in here, the net profit can be calculated by take the contribution margin and you less sum of all fixed costs. Okay, now we have prepared the flexible budget. Now we can calculate the variance. The variance, you can take the actual minus the flexible budget, or the flexible budget minus the actual. In here, I just want to know what is the difference between the two. So I just take the actual and I minus the flexible. And then you can copy this formula and paste it down to here. You should familiar yourself with how to work on Excel, because likely Excel skill is very important technical skills that you need to know. Now, again, we can calculate the volume variance here, the variance that caused by the sales volume. So I take the flexible budget and I minus the static budget. Copy, paste. I'm working on Mac, so it's a bit slower. But if you work, I work on iPad, so it's a bit slower. If you work on computer, that'll be much better. So you see, there's two things that you can notice here. The difference between the static budget and the flexible budget. You have the figures here. You have a difference whenever the items is variable, depends on the sales volume. And in here, there's no difference because the fixed costs do not depend on the sales volume. And the difference between the flexible budget and the actual, in here you don't see any difference, because basically we use the same selling price and we use the same sales volume. But in the cost, you see all the differences here. Okay, so what does it mean? It means the volume variance tells you the difference between the static budget and the actual budget due to the sales volume. And the efficiency or price variance tells you how efficient your organization is operating. So in here, we can see how efficient your production department is doing. Look at here. It's really a huge difference, you know. So we base on the same sales volume, but the actual cost is double the flexible budget cost, which is impossible. It's just too much. Okay, so in here, if you want to calculate the budget variance, which is simply the difference between the actual figures and the very, very beginning budget, then you can also do that. Okay, so the question does not require us to do, but again, I just want to show you so that you know. So actually the last column here, if you add the column C and column E, we will get column G. All right, so basically if you just look at the column G, you see the difference between the very first budget that we produced and the actual figures, but you want to explore further what makes the difference as you see here, then you calculate the flexible budget and you start looking at other figures. It will tell you where you have to look at. We have to do a further investigation. Now I stopped this video here because we finished the calculation part. In the next video I will start to look at what kind of figures that we have to do a little bit more of investigation. What does it mean? So that we start to learn how to actually think about the meaning of the figures and how to communicate the meanings of this figure to the managers and suggest them any kind of action that we can take. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope that you are with me, and if you're not, then you can replay the video and you do the problem yourself. Remember that as long as you do the problem yourself again and again, you'll master it. Thank you.